Before we go any further, just want to thank all the people over on Patreon, because without their help, none of this upgraded content that you be seeing would be possible. Over on the Patreon, you get exclusive sneak peeks at upcoming videos. You also get access to the Patreon only Discord server. Coming up soon, I'm going to be working on talking about other anime that I can't talk about here on YouTube, like say ReZero, Konosuba, and etc. I'm also going to start posting the scripts for video essays, and every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul. We also are going to open up the Patreon only Discord server to YouTube members at the $2 price tier, which also means that members will be seeing their name here alongside the patron. But with that being said, let's get back into today's video. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another review for Boruto Naruto Next Generations episode 285. And now that episode 285 is done in the books, we got a lot to talk about, because the anime is finally getting to the portion of the story that in the novel, this is actually leading towards the climax. You got Sasuke and Sakura, you got all these EDO TENSEI that are just running around, you got the battles that are getting ready to take place, and I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, a little bit disappointed, because pacing wise they really flew through a lot of content from the actual story itself, from the light novel version. But again, like I've been saying ever since this got announced, this is a abridged version of the story. If you want the full version, you're either gonna have to read the light novel, or you're going to have to read the manga version, because the manga version of the story is a lot closer to what you get in the light novel version. The anime, think of this like the Cliff Notes version, with a few changes made to the actual story because of pacing reasons. So with that being said, let's back things up a bit and let's get into the episode review itself. So the episode opens up where you got Sakura, she's walking through the hospital, you got all these dudes, they down bad, they saying like, hey doctor, want to sit over here, and you got all these dudes being super thirsty for Sakura. I've seen a few people in the comment section when this chapter came out in the manga, even when Sakura's walking freely through the hospital, people like, why is it okay for a woman to go through there with all these men? It's because, again, you got men all patrolling the place. Nobody's going to put a foot out of line, otherwise they end up as dinosaur food. So that's the reason why. However, while you have Sakura and she's sitting down at the table, that's when Gano sits down with Sakura and begins to start asking her questions. And as Sakura begins to start describing her husband, that's when Gano figures out that Sakura is Sasuke's husband. And in the anime version, they make a tweak to where he's like, yeah, I just overheard Jiji and Sasuke talking. That's not actually how that takes place. It's one of those things where he just put the pieces together because he's a observant person. But again, this is an abridged version, so it's one of those things where they did this to speed things up. And so after Sakura has a moment where she's like, oh my god, I didn't expect you to figure that out, Gano just finishes his food and he tells Sakura to go look outside at the tree. She looks outside at the tree and she sees the almond flowers, and that's when she realizes that the almond flowers, they have a shade of pink that's almost like a cherry blossom, which is the color of her hair. And she realizes what Gano meant when Gano said that from the moment that Sasuke arrived at the prison, he would always sit at this spot and look out at the trees. And Sakura realizes that he was doing that because he missed her. Now, the other thing that happens here is that there's another change made where you have Sasuke and Jiji, and they're sitting on top of the rooftop of the observatory, and they're getting the apricots, and Jiji's complaining about how hungry he is and how every time Sasuke gets into something that he's the one that ends up paying for. And so in the manga version of this, you know, Sasuke actually eats the apricots and he gives them to Jiji. In this one, Jiji's like, hey, they're inedible, you can't really eat them. And Sasuke jumps up and sees the lake, and that's when he realizes like, oh, okay, that's where the polar particle fell. He gets a little backstory from Jiji, where Jiji says that a meteor once fell to the ground there. Sasuke and Sakura end up meeting because Sakura was looking outside and she figured out the mystery behind the star lines map, how the hand signs that shinobi use are based off of the zodiac signs. And then she also realizes that in order to break the seal on the polar particle, you have to use the hand seals that are in the card formation for one of the card hands in the game. You have the earth hand and you have the sky hand, the two strongest card combinations in the game. And so when you get the sky polar particle, you have to use the hand seal formations that are lined up with that particular card game set. And then when it comes to one on Earth, which is the one down there at the prison, you have to use a similar thing with the Earth hand seals. And so it's one of those things where as Sasuke and Sakura are talking and they're breaking down all the information, it goes back to what I said when the anime started adapting this. This is a classic Naruto story. It's the move hidden behind the move. It's a ninja must see through deception. You have ninjas realizing, wait a second, the card game actually has a hidden meaning behind it. This is the instructions for the hand seals. The paintings that Hagoromo left behind, there's actually a hidden message in those. And the same thing with the map that's left behind. There's a hidden message left behind in the map. And so it's very fitting that the founder of the shinobi hides away the polar particles on Earth and in the sky by using ninjutsu, and he ends up hiding them in a way to where only a ninja could figure it out. That's one of the things I liked about this, is that it's not necessarily about the big battle that is taking place at the end of the story that you'll be seeing in next week's episode. It's also about the journey of how we got here, because it's ninjas doing ninja things. And that actually brings me to the next part of the episode itself, because after Sasuke ends up confronting Zansuru, which that's actually something you see in the manga version of the chapter that just came out yesterday, albeit there's some pretty big changes in the anime version of the story. Sasuke confronts Zansuru and he realizes that Zansuru isn't actually a shinobi and that there's somebody else that is doing the forbidden jutsu that's being used here. And Sasuke realizes that this isn't the exact same thing as EDO TENSEI back in the Land of Fire. It's a slightly different variation of the jutsu. And like I said in my review yesterday, a lot of the jutsu that you come to know in the Land of Fire, there are other origins for them. That's something that the Boruto manga has been explaining. Hagoromo wasn't a Sasuke. I don't want to go any further because I don't want to spoil anime viewers who do not know what Shinjutsu is. So it's one of those things where you can see where there are small connections being made. Now, one other thing that really stands out about this is that whole theme of a ninja must see through deception, it really gets showcased in the next section of the story itself, because when all of those dragon beasts are just running through the prison and they begin hunting down the prisoners because they're just all in this rage, the version of the story that you're seeing in the anime is not bad. While it is rushed, they really toned down some of the violence because this was more violent in the light novel version. I am really worried that the battles with Jiji and when Sasuke lets that bloodlust out, I'm really worried they're going to tone down what we get, because like when Jiji runs into Sasuke after the big battle with Jiji that takes place after this, the way Sasuke is described with that murderous intent in the novel, I really think the anime is going to tone this down. And it is purely because they've got to try and squeeze in 2 chapters in the next episode and the epilogue and do an anime original ending for the polar particles, because this is part of a 3-part story and this is part 2 of a 3-part story. So next week's episode is going to be rushed. Like, I really think they're going to tone down a lot of stuff. But again, that's why I keep stressing, you want the full story, read the manga version and then just jump into the novels after that. Because while I'm glad that Studio Pierrot is finally animating these stories, doing it this short is doing a huge disservice to people that are only consuming the story via the anime. But back to the episode itself, while there is some good, like you see Sakura punching that 6-foot-tall, 2,000-pound Pachycephalosaurus and knocking it clean across the area, which that's like really impressive when you look at 2,000 pounds running full steam and Sakura's hitting that thing. It's pretty impressive. However, while you have stuff like that and you actually see some of the blood from one of the scenes that was toned down from the light novel, you also get little small things like in the anime design, they're continuing not to put Sakura's Uchiha clan crest on the back of her clothes. That's something Kishimoto does in the manga that he did for Naruto Gaiden, and that's what's actually done in the Sasuke retsuden manga that Kimura Shingo is drawing. It's one of those things where it's done on purpose. It's a little petty in my opinion. However, the reason why I bring this up is that you see a moment where after Sakura begins freeing all the prisoners and telling them to run out, Sakura then ends up running into Jiji as she begins running through the prison because she's trying to find Zansuru, and Jiji starts getting information out of her. And some of the information that Jiji gets out of her is basically that Zansuru is the one behind everything. And so Jiji, after playing the full Sakura in close and he hugs her, and Sakura, it throws her off for a second, and the reason why she doesn't immediately break, and this is something cut out of the anime, but you saw it in the manga and you saw it in the light novel. The reason why Sakura even allowed this to happen is Jiji's always had a crush on Sakura, or rather he gives off that appearance, but there is some validity to it because she does remind him of his fiance. In the light novel, Sasuke basically grabs this man's wrist and almost breaks his arm because he's trying to grab Sakura's hair from behind to smell it. And in the manga, you see something somewhat similar to where Sasuke just steps out and grabs his hand. So it's one of those things where like Sakura knows the guy's creepy, and between Sasuke trusting him and Jiji just being creepy, it's one of those things where her guard was lowered, and lo and behold, a ninja must see through deception because Jiji takes that opportunity to stab Sakura in the back with the same poison that was coated on Minno's talons that was able to knock out Sasuke because Sasuke didn't have any immunity to it. Again, a ninja must see through deception. And Jiji takes the polar particle that they gotten and starts weaving the hand signs and ends up reviving this monster dragon beast that is taller than the observatory itself. And we learn the whole reason why he's doing so is because he's trying to bring his fiance back to life, which there's a huge plot twist with this that is probably going to get shoved in the next episode because again, they got a lot of stuff to cover in this. As all the rubble starts falling apart, that's when Sakura ends up thinking about Sasuke, and Sasuke looks over at the prison. Sasuke begins to start taking out his sword. He's getting ready for battle. Zanzuru is super excited because now all the dragon beasts that they needed in order to get back up to the prime minister, who is actually on the other side of Radaku fighting against Kakashi, leading an army of 300 mercenaries and rogue ninjas, and Kakashi's fighting them all alone, which I've discussed in the Kakashi Retsuden novel here on the channel. You're not going to see that animated, but Kakashi fights 300 shinobi and does some pretty incredible stuff, including counter some really overpowered water release that's amped by 6 paths chakra that can flood the entire country. There's a lot going on here. However, I will say the fact that next week's episode, probably half of it's going to be action based, that's probably going to satisfy the action junkies. So my episode question, you guys, is how many of you guys saw Jiji as the one that was behind everything? While you think that over, click here to watch my Sasuke Retsuden chapter review if you want the proper version of the story that you saw today, or click here to watch this Black Clover chapter review from my KRYPTONIAN SAIYAN channel.